Welcome, guys, to my mid-season team ratings. 11 races done, 8 Mercedes victories, 2 Ferrari wins, 1 late McLaren breakthrough, and several teams already wondering how they got the biggest regulation changes in years so badly wrong. This is not just based on championship table, because one team sitting 5th has arguably done a better job than a former championship winning operation sitting 4th. A team with 0 points has not necessarily had the worst season, and even the championship leaders have left a huge number of points at the racetracks. So today, I'm going to give all 11 F1 teams their 2026 mid-season grade out of 10. We'll look at where every car is fast, where it's struggling, the weekend each team maximised, the races they threw away, what needs to change operationally, and what each team must protect in the second half of the season. Let me know your comments in the ratings, or on my ratings, especially the ones that you think I've got completely wrong. Let's get to it. Welcome, guys. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoy the video, hit the like. There's going to be 5 parts to every rating: the pace, development, reliability, operational execution, and whether the team is delivering against what we could reasonably expect from its money, facilities, and experience. The last part matters because Mercedes winning races and Cadillac simply building 2 cars are not the same challenge. So this is a report card, not just the champion on just the constructors championship with numbers from 1 to 10 added beside it. We're going from 11th in the championship up to 1st, beginning with Formula One's newest team, Cadillac. Cadillac are last. They have 0 points on the table with the Mach 26. It's now the slowest car in the field, but I'm still going to give him 5 out of 10 because context matters. This team has had less than a year after final approval to assemble the people, system, supply chain, and race operation required to compete in F1. They are still working without their complete permanent headquarters. Rumours are now that they're shifting their entire base from Silverstone all the way back to the US. So there'll be a complete US team. We'll question that, and we'll look into that in the next video with a preview of Zandvoort, but for today we'll leave that as it is. But they're currently working without a permanent headquarters. They're still yet produced 2 cars, reached Melbourne, and have developed at a rate that has at least prevented the gap from exploding to the guys at the front. Where Cadillac have done well, Japan was their first genuinely encouraging complete weekend. Sergio Perez finished 17th, Bottas 19th, which sounds unimpressive, but the team, considering its strongest race at that stage because the cars ran cleanly and the gap had started to shrink, they really missed, or the real missed breakthrough came in Monaco. Sergio Perez crossed the line in a provisional 10th place, which would have been their first points of the season. They would have, in fact, beaten Aston Martin to that point. But 2 separate starting procedure infringements, including lining up incorrectly for the restart, dropped him to 15th place. The speed and opportunism was there. The operation failed to complete the job. Austria also bought a substantial aerodynamic package, changes around the side pod inlet, engine cover cooling, plus work on the floor edge, diffuser, and beam wing. That tells us Cadillac are not merely surviving, they're trying to establish a proper aerodynamic program during year 1. Where the car struggles, the biggest limitation remains basic performance. The car is more competitive over 1 lap than it is on race fuel. This suggests the Mach 26 can briefly switch on its tyres and produce a respectable balance, but cannot sustain the necessary load, tyre control, and energy use over a stint. Perez estimated before Hungary that Cadillac needed about half a second to 8/10 to join a regular points battle. That's not a setup adjustment. That is a large performance car performance deficit. there have been I think there's too many mechanical and quality control problems at Cadillac. Bottas retired with technical issues in Australia, Monaco, Barcelona, Austria before the summer break. Perez suffered 3 retirements before Hungary, then both cars failed to finish in Budapest. Austria, they were power losses, braking and bodywork concerns across the weekend. At Spa, Perez retired with a suspected rear spring or dampener problem. So what must improve operationally? Well, Cadillac must, and they need to really clean up and avoid the avoidable errors, if that's the way of putting it. A new team, they can reasonably lack downforce, pace. It shouldn't throw away points by restart positioning wrong twice in one race. The second priority has to just be its build quality. The aerodynamic group, they just can't evaluate updates properly if practice sessions are interrupted by fuel, brake, suspension, cooling, bodywork problems. The list can go on really on that regard for Cadillac. So they need to have a stricter sign-off process between design and manufacturing and trackside assembly. They just need more reliable correlation work on a Friday as well. They just need to simplify race weekends. Perez and Bottas have enough experience to provide the high-quality direction, but the team must give them the long, uninterrupted stints rather than just, the constant reacting to a new fault. Keep using the drivers as development leaders. Perez, in particular, has looked more comfortable in this environment than he did Red Bull at Red Bull, and if they keep bringing the upgrades, even if points remain unlikely, because this season is about proving the team's tools and processes are in the right place before the long-term Cadillac Power Unit project arrives. The verdict is a 5 out of 10. The results are poor, but reaching the grid, staying within sight of the established teams, creating a functioning development program, genuine achievements. 5 is not a reward for being last. It's recognition that the foundation exists. The second half must now be cleaner. So it's a promising result. I think 5 is fair considering where they've come from and where they've got to go. But plenty of work to be done, and I think they've had a pretty solid start considering they're completely new from the ground up. 10th place, Aston Martin, and this is the most disappointing team of the first half. Aston Martin have world-class facility, Adrian Newey leading the technical operation, an exclusive Honda Works partnership, and 2 experienced drivers, double world champion, one of them in fact. And they have 1 point, and that's inherited because of Cadillac's penalties at Monaco. And that's why I'm giving Aston Martin a 1 out of 10. The hype at Aston Martin was absolutely huge pre-season. The warning signs arrived before the first race, in fact, didn't it? The AMR26 suffered severe vibrations in testing. The team lost crucial mileage. The original car then lacked both aerodynamic performance and reliability. The Honda Power Unit was short of the required straight line performance, and it still needs work on drivability, shifting, energy management. And the car was just particularly exposed in high-speed, power-sensitive circuits. Spa, they were last by a clear margin. In Canada, Stroll started from the pit lane after the battery and setup changes. Alonso retired with a seat problem. At Barcelona, both cars retired. In Austria, Stroll failed to finish, and Fernando Alonso ended up 3 laps down. For much of the first half, there was not a car fighting at the back of the midfield. It was a car detached from it, in fact. The best point of this season just got to be that point in Monaco from Fernando Alonso, but it's not a point won on pace. He started 21st. He kept a clean car through a chaotic race and benefited from the penalties ahead. That was probably just the intelligent execution from Fernando Alonso and an aggressive tyre approach from the team. but it shouldn't disguise the underlying performance problems. The genuine and important weekend was Hungary. They produced 16 changes, focusing largely on creating a more robust airflow to the diffuser of the car, and generate rear load over a wide range of ride heights. The revised car has jumped Cadillac and Williams in qualifying. They finished ahead of both Haas cars and one Alpine in the race. For Lance Stroll 13th, Fernando Alonso 14th. Not a great result in isolation, but from the evidence, the new direction works. What must improve for Aston Martin? Well, they made a brave decision not to drip feed small updates on to the car. Fundamentally a wrong concept. They accepted several months of pain and concentrated resources on just one major package. The Hungary step suggests that was probably the right step to go, especially looking at where they are, but the execution around it still has to improve. This team was short of spare parts in Hungary. Lance Stroll lost most of the day on Friday after a suspension failure, and the two cars couldn't follow the same learning program. When the upgrades effectively as a relaunch of the season, the second half or the loss of half represented mileage is now extremely costly. The team need tighter reliability control, a little bit like Cadillac as well, Aston Martin and Honda. Foster fault isolation and enough manufacturing capacity with both of them combined to bring the match specifications and adequate spare parts for both cars is a must. They've also got to convert the wind tunnel progress into the car, so the engineers can basically optimize this quickly to the track. The next Honda specification, it's got to improve deployment and straight line speed. There's further chassis steps as well planned for Zandvoort, Monza and Baku. So Aston Martin, they've just got to prove that Hungary was the start of the curve rather than just a one circuit exception. We've seen that before with the false dawn, so it's imperative now. Zandvoort and Monza, Baku will, provided Honda can do their part with their upgrade, they're going to prove that it wasn't just a one-off. A verdict is a 1 out of 10. The Hungary upgrade probably prevented it from being like a half. It was shocking, considering the level of investment in this team and the failure. The only encouraging part is that the second half of the season has already begun and the upgrades have arrived, so they can only kick on from here. 9th place, Williams. Well, they finished 5th last season and deliberately put enormous emphasis on the 2026 rules, understandably so. And instead of closing on the top teams, they've fallen down to 9th place, and that earns them a 3 out of 10. The FW48 was late. It missed the Barcelona shakedown. Arrived significantly overweight. Carlos Sainz explained that the production delays contributed directly to the excessive weight. But weight is only part of it. The cars lacked aerodynamic load, needs better balance. The combination hurts everywhere. The excessive mass costs lap time under acceleration, braking, and through every direction change. The lack of downforce then especially becomes damaging at fast high load circuits, Barcelona, Silverstone, and Spa, where it just exposed the car brutally. Williams haven't scored a point since Monaco, and Aston Martin's Hungary update appears to have moved them ahead of them. And, well, the trackside team, I suppose they deserve credit for collecting 11 points in the first 6 rounds without ever clearly possessing the 5th fastest car. Carlos Sainz called 9th in China a mini victory. They've got to pick up as many of them as they can through the season. He's added another 9th in Canada. Albon took 8th in Monaco, and the team supplemented those results with points in sprint sessions. Those returns came through clean weekends and the experienced drivers taking the opportunity when the faster cars hit trouble. And I think that's the strongest part of the Williams outfit right now. The driver pairing is better than the car. The early season operation extracted more than the underlying pace deserved. The European high downforce track removed the opportunities to hide. Both cars were outside the points in Barcelona, Austria, Silverstone, Spa, and Hungary. Silverstone in particular was really painful. Carlos Sainz ended 17th after a penalty for overtaking the safety car. Albon retired. Spa, they were 15th and 16th, more than 100 seconds from the winner. The problem is just not going to be stealing the occasional points. It's that the performance direction is just not match the expectation created after sort of significantly parking part of the 2025 project, and it seems to have hurt them rather than help them going into this season. Williams' biggest operation lesson sits upstream of race strategy. The production system must deliver the car and upgrades on time, at weight and the target weight and enough quantity for both drivers. Missing the first shakedown of a new regulation year was a symptom of a process probably under too much strain within the team. James Vowles has taken responsibility for that. At the circuit, the team must protect confidence. Carlos Sainz leads Alex Albon 9-2 in qualifying, but the race results are much closer. It probably just indicates the car's difficult to drive and to extract that one lap pace to sustain, consistent performance, and that's a very difficult job and a different job. The engineers probably need to just give both drivers a more repeatable platform instead of chasing a narrow peak and that stronger performance. There's a major upgrade package expected for Baku. It must remove the weight and add efficiency in the downforce and widen the setup window. Williams, they need to just keep the clear leadership and strong driver feedback loop. But they can't allow the rest of the 2026 season to become a holding pattern while waiting for one rescue upgrade. And I think that's going to be the big problem for them. The verdict, like I said, is a 3 out of 10. The early execution was respectable. The car development program has been a major step backwards, though, and they really need to pick that up in the second half of the season. 8th place, Audi. They only have 12 points, and yet I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. Unlike Cadillac, Audi inherited the Sauber operation or the organization, but they still had to introduce their first modern F1 power unit, rebuild the team as a works operation, and create a competitive car under the new rules. What they've done well is really the chassis is incredible. A really good first attempt. In the opening races, Audi were already close to the midfield. Gabi Bortoleto scored 9th on the team's debut in Australia. Nico Hülkenberg has then finished 11th twice in China and Japan, showing the cars on the edge of points even before the later upgrades arrived. The strongest trend arrived before the break. Gabi Bortoleto finished 8th in Silverstone and 8th in Spa. Nico Hülkenberg went on a run without scoring points, though, but finally put that to bed in Hungary, while both Audis finished ahead of the two Alpines. And I think that gave them 3 consecutive point-scoring weekends and showed that the development package had moved the car forward. Gabi has been particularly impressive in that team. He trails Nico Hülkenberg 6-5 in qualifying, but leads him 7-4 in race finishes, and he scored 10 out of the 12 points for Audi. So an incredible job from him. The power unit, though, is one that remains behind the leading manufacturers. The chassis can put the car in the midfield fight, but the lack of deployment and total performance required to defend and attack consistently over the race distance had been a problem. Reliability has magnified the deficit. Hülkenberg didn't start in Australia, retired 3 times and waited until Hungary for his first points. Gabi Bortoleto failed to start in China. Early season race starts were also a weakness. Nick Hülkenberg dropped from 13th to 19th at Suzuka, and it cost him a potential points problem. So their starts is something that they've seemed to have got right in the last couple of Grand Prix, but it was horrible early doors. Audi need to turn their collection of P11 level weekends into points. And that just means cleaner launches, fewer interrupted sessions, and more decisive strategy when the field is tightly packed. The reliability work must be split clearly between chassis systems and the new power unit. It's the only team using an Audi power unit, and they don't have a customer to get ungathered data to speed up diagnosis of problems. Their feedback loops between Nuremberg and Hinwil will just have to be exceptionally fast, really. That's where they need to just make sure they get everything right. They had the departure situation around Jonathan Wheatley, which created the leadership question at the time. The new organization needs stability. They couldn't afford issues like that. But I think they've dealt with it fairly well, especially with they've had Matteo Binotto step into that space. And it's not really shown on track. What they need to keep doing is just keep up the aggressive update rate, keep giving Bortoleto the room to develop. He's been brilliant so far this season. They need to keep using Nick Hulkenberg for the technical reference. He's got the experience to try and get this car in the right window. It now appears capable of beating the Haas on merit, this car, and I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. The points total for the season is probably modest, but the trajectory is excellent. Audi look like a real F1 team and not a rebranded Sauber, and I think that's a massive compliment to them and the team. 7th place, Haas. And, well, they started the year brilliant and almost stopped moving after that, didn't they? And that's why their rating is a 5 out of 10. The excellent start was Ollie Berman finished 7th in Australia and 5th in China. Sprint points included, and he's collected 17 points across the opening 2 weekends. That put Haas ahead of the Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship briefly. The VF26 has been competitive enough in the early midfield, so reward of clean driving and good tyre uses meant points. Berman's China performance was the only Q3 appearance or its clearest example of the car operating in the right window. So there was and has been performance there. Haas has added smaller returns through Berman in Cadillac. Esteban Ocon with points in Monaco, but after those first 2 rounds, the teams, they've only just picked up 4 points before the break. The key technical weakness is the rear downforce. The car lacks the load and stability. Drivers need to commit to every corner and carry speed through the exit. At Spa, the energy deployment was a big issue, and that made their car performance worse. They've had a new rear front wing to improve the handling, and it gave Berman more confidence, but it didn't create the lap time. That's an important distinction. Haas has made the car more predictable, yet it's just not sufficiently fast enough at the moment. They've also been inconsistent with parts and car-to-car behaviour. Ocon has repeatedly felt limited by issues the team have just struggled to identify. Berman has suffered 3 retirements. Team principal Komatsu admitted that it's got inherent problems and that the team are looking to understand them and try and get on top of them. Bad weekends. They've had a run of 4 races from Austria through to Hungary. That would have been the whole season then. And they've produced no points at Spa. Berman and Ocon finished 14th and 17th. Hungary, even the upgraded Aston Martin was ahead of them. And they've gone from sort of like the lead midfield conversation to defending 7th from an improving Audi. The first job that they really need to improve is correlation and component consistency. If the 2 cars or they've got replacement cars on parts behaving differently, the teams just waste Friday trying to just get to the bottom of the faults rather than improving the setup. Haas have got to strengthen inspection, measurement, and data comparison between factory and the track. The second job is the development efficiency, and this has been a problem for Haas for years now. They've got the smallest workforce and the tightest budget, so they can't win a volume contest. Their upgrades must target the limit rear load characteristics, not just simply with making the existing balance nicer. They've just got to improve, and improvements, when they do come, it's critical that they're faster than the parts that they've put on before, rather than just stabilizing platform. The third issue is probably extracting both drivers and the best from both drivers. Berman leads Ocon 8-3 in qualifying, 7-4 in the race. And Haas need to determine how much of that is driver form and how much of it is the inconsistency in the machinery. Keep trusting Berman is probably what they need to carry on with. Keep the direct engineering culture under Komatsu and just continue to exploit the opportunities when the midfield compresses. The opening races prove the team can execute. Seventh is probably respectable for a smaller operation, but considering where they were at the early two parts or the early couple of races of the season, we've seen that it's possible, but they've just been outdeveloped badly, and that's why it's a 5 out of 10 for them. Sixth place, Alpine, and they finished last in 2025, and after 11 races in 2026, they've got 61 points and are only 5 points behind the Racing Bulls. The turnaround, I think, gives them a 7 out of 10 for me, considering where they were last season. The switch to Mercedes power and gearboxes been integrated more smoothly than probably many expected. Alpine produced a solid car immediately, and Pierre Gasly has picked up points in the first 7 Grand Prix. China bought points for both drivers. Gasly finished 7th at Suzuka. Miami put both Alpines into the Q3 before Colapinto finished 7th. Canada was probably their best performance weekend as a team. Franco Colapinto finished 6th despite front wings damage, and Gasly took 8th. Barcelona, Gasly added a 7th place and more points, and Colapinto 10th. The headline result has probably been Monaco, with Gasly with that 3rd place still under threat. So they managed to get that back successfully, but we're still waiting the hearing to see if they keep that place. Their reliability has got to be another strength for them. Gasly's Miami retirement is the only one Grand Prix that they've DNF'd in the first half of the season. The problem, and where they've struggled most, is the early advantages faded because the rivals have developed faster around them. We've seen Otmar Zafnauer said this has been a problem they've had for years, and so something that they need to fix. At Spa, both drivers said they was just simply too slow through several of the corners compared to the Audi and Racing Bulls. Gasly got 7th or scored the first 7 races, but then just got 1 point in the next 3. Spa and Silverstone became damage limitation events. Alpine still scored with both cars at Silverstone, and Franco Colapinto grabbed 10th in Belgium, but the finishing positions faltered and the underlying pace just wasn't there. The current car appears more comfortable in slower speed sequences than on tracks demanding sustained aerodynamic efficiency. The Mercedes power unit is giving Alpine a good energy base, so the missing lap time really and just points towards the chassis load and the development rather than the engine side of things. What they need to get right operationally, well, it's just the development part. A bit like the Haas team, they've got to just match the excellent early integration work that Alpine have done, getting that Mercedes working with this car. They've not publicly committed to timing of a major next upgrade package, so they've not said exactly when that will arrive, but it needs to. Racing Bulls and Audi are visibly moving forward and waiting too long. Risk them running from 5th place down to 8th. So there's small but costly trackside issues in Spa that need to get on top of. Gasly had no power at the end of the formation lap and suffered 2 poor pit stops. In a midfield that's separated by tenths, those mistakes can reverse the order even when the strategy is sound. Gasly leads Franco Colapinto 9-2 in qualifying. Colapinto's race contribution, though, has improved, and that's been a big plus for them as the second half or the first half of the season's gone on. Both Alpines need both cars starting higher because points opportunities are now shrinking as the leading teams become more reliable. You're no longer getting points up to sixth place. The top four are generally finishing now. What they need to keep doing is really just keep the strong Mercedes partnership. The excellent race reliability has been good, and the willingness to fight decisions off track when the evidence supports the team. Keep developing Franco Colapinto, whose Spa and Canada results showed a useful resilience. It's a major recovery from 2025 and a strong opening car, but the grade will quickly fall if the development curve stays flat. So something they really need to work on. But I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. Fifth place, the Racing Bulls. And, they're probably the overachievers of 2026. Fifth in the championship. 5 points clear of Alpine and one of the smallest profiles in the paddock. I'm giving them a 9 out of 10. And here's why. The V-carb is probably not spectacular in one narrow area. It's probably just useful across a wide range of circuits, and that's been their big plus. It gives the drivers enough confidence under braking and enough consistency over a stint to live with the front of the midfield. The results have improved that it's a versatile car. Arvid Lindblad scored 8th on debut in Australia. Liam Lawson scored 7th in China. Monaco produced a 6th and 7th. Barcelona an 8th and 9th. Austria a 9th and 10th, and Silverstone were 6th and 7th again. So that's 5 double points finishes in a 6-race stretch approaching the break. Liam Lawson has been absolutely superb. His consistency, scoring in 6 of the 7 races leading to the summer and climbing up to 9th in the Drivers' Championship is absolutely brilliant. Lindblad has made very few rookie mistakes, and that's been a big plus, and he's already close to Liam Lawson over one lap. Their qualifying head-to-head is only 6-5, so really good driver lineup. Lindblad getting on top of this car early has really helped the team. The biggest strength and is probably within the team, it's accessible balance. It may lack the peak performance of the front runners, but the platform really allows the drivers to attack and make strategy easier because the tyres behave predictably. There are still weaknesses. Lindblad reported low speed braking difficulty and a poor feel on the hard tyre in Austria. The team arrived in Spa with only one complete set of new parts and had to choose which driver received it. And that highlights sort of the production and budget limits that could stop them responding and keeping up with Alpine and Audi in bringing major steps. Reliability cost a likely point chance when Lindblad couldn't start in Canada because of a clutch issue. Lawson retired in Miami, but generally I think they've had good performance. Under Alan Permain, the race management has been one of the best and the team's biggest assets. Strategy, pit timing and driver management is repeatedly converted modest grid positions into 2 cars scoring points, and Austria was a good example. Even after Liam Lawson reported a fire, the team managed to keep both cars running, used the undercut effectively and protected another double points finish result. So the team are working really, really well. I think the greatest risk is just becoming conservative to this Racing Bulls. They're no longer trying to steal the occasional point, and they're trying to defend a 5th place. And they need enough manufacturing capacity to put upgrades on both cars. And they must prevent a 2027 driver decision from disturbing a very effective partnership at the moment, because there is rumours or has been pre the break of Liam Lawson potentially moving seats there. They need to review the low speed braking consistency and the clutch reliability, because 5th place could be decided on the failures, and so they need to keep making sure that they got a car that just can keep it on track. What they need to keep doing is pretty much everything, really. The development direction, calm strategy, equal opportunity for the drivers, and a car that works across different circuits has been good, and they need to keep that up in the second half of the season. Not the fastest team, but arguably the team closest to maximising possible returns from resources almost every race weekend, and that's why they get a strong 9 out of 10. Red Bull in fourth and winless with 202 points behind Mercedes. For a team that fought for the championship last season, that is a serious drop, and the rating for them is a 6 out of 10. The positive story for them really has got to be the Ford power unit that's been built the first time from scratch, and it's in roughly 3.5 years. It was a huge mountain that everybody said that needed to topple, and they've performed strongly enough. So much so that the FIA considered that they didn't or weren't eligible for the extra catch-up opportunities that was afforded all other teams bar them. And you've got to say that's probably a major technical achievement. The reliability and base power are better than many predicted for a first-year manufacturer. The second positive has got to be Isaac Hadjar. Red Bull have finally got 2 cars contributing, and Isaac Hadjar's got 68 points, with 5th in Canada, 4th in Monaco, and a run of strong top 6 finishes. He's behind Max Verstappen, 8-3 in qualifying and races, but he's handled most of the difficult second seat problems in Formula One that we've seen in that Red Bull extremely well. Their strongest weekends have probably been Canada, where they finished 3rd and 5th. Austria was Red Bull's closest shot at victory. Max Verstappen finishing 1.5 seconds behind George Russell, Isaac Hadjar in 6th. Spa produced another strong result, 3rd for Max Verstappen, a great podium from him, and 6th. Hungary ended with Max Verstappen 2nd and Isaac Hadjar 6th. So, and having severe balance problems did Isaac Hadjar. So, a decent run from him. So, the late run of decent performances, you've got to say a 3rd and 2nd before the summer break, are really good. Show the team are progressing. And at one point, it believed they only had the 4th strongest package. So a lot of work still to be done, though, especially considering that they have got apparently the best power unit. The chassis balance remains inconsistent. Verstappen's struggled completely with the front and rear end of the car working together. He just said the car was broken in Hungary, despite going on to get a 2nd place. And it's got a narrow operating window for setup. And I think that's the balance that they need to get right. The rear wing problem cost them performance and points in Belgium and in Silverstone. And then we've got Verstappen retired there, Isaac Hadjar 5th, probably saved the weekend for them in Silverstone a little bit, but Max's performance was strong there and another podium was possible. Monaco exposed the power delivery and shifting issues on Isaac Hadjar's car. Verstappen start problem pretty much ended his race immediately, so that's something that they had to get right. It appears they have got right and better in the last couple of race starts. The package also appears to ask too much of Max Verstappen. His results have often exceeded the quality of the car, but a championship team cannot depend on repeated rescue drives from Max Verstappen, and I think that's been part of the problem and sort of masked some of their issues, because Max has been absolutely brilliant in this car. Red Bull, they need a wider setup window, more reliable correlation between simulation and the track. If the car arrives badly balanced, the team spends pretty much the whole weekend firefighting to get up the setup in the right window. It's something that they've struggled with, but the drivers have managed to drive around it pretty well, especially Max Verstappen. They just need to keep up the support of Max Verstappen. They need to keep developing this Ford Red Bull package and keep the aggressive recovery rate seen in Austria up. And results have been there, but the car performance has not quite been there. You've got to say the first win is the power unit project, but now they need to kick on with that and get the chassis in the right direction. I think they're better than the points gap suggests to Mercedes, and I think that's down to just some early poor performances. But a winless fourth place is where they are at the moment, and that's probably below Red Bull standard, and I'm giving them a 6 out of 10. Third place, McLaren, and they entered the year as reigning drivers and constructors champions. They're 59 points behind Mercedes and needed Hungary to win their first Grand Prix. It's a difficult one to judge McLaren, but I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10 still. Although their current form may be better than that grade, especially considering the win in Hungary. The car just didn't produce enough aerodynamic load early doors. They struggled to to get on top of the new stiffer tyres and get them into the operating window on smooth surfaces. A design philosophy that protects the tyres has become a bit of a weakness for them in parts. They've not been able to get the tyre temperature up to or just even manage the overheating, in fact, as well at the time. So early problems that they appear to have now got on top of looking at the Hungary result, but that's just one race. They have tended to go well there in Hungary before, so let's see if they can keep that up. Following the summer break, Canada and Monaco were probably the clearest examples of their tyre temperature issues. Neither had enough pace or reliability. Monaco, Norris lost time in practice sessions with power unit problems and retired from the race with a power unit issue as well. He suffered gearbox failures in Canada. Piastri just rescued a 5th in Monaco. Just basically through attrition and penalties ahead of them, really. The customer relations between them and the Mercedes has not been the best. They're probably behind the work teams in terms of the integration and exploiting the new power unit. But that doesn't mean Mercedes is withholding support. I think that just means the works team have managed to get the chassis and power unit working together better than probably McLaren have. Reliability issues have been expensive from the beginning. Piastri didn't start in Australia. Both cars failed to start in China. Norris has had 2 DNF since, and Piastri retired in Hungary with a gearbox problem. So reliability has been a big problem for them, but probably all down to Mercedes power unit issues rather than them specifically. But we've not quite seen the amount of issues that McLaren have that Mercedes have, so there's probably some issues there that they need to get on top of internally as well. Japan was probably one of their better races early doors. Piastri should and could have got the win, but finished second. Lando Norris was 5th in that race. Miami was the first proper sign of some sort of recovery. Norris took sprint pole and victory, and then the team finished 2nd and 3rd in the race. Barcelona, they picked up a 3rd and a 5th, and Austria produced a 4th and a 7th. So some promise, then some dips, but then they got the breakthrough win in Hungary, and the new conceptual direction gave the car enough load and confidence for Lando Norris to take pole position and the win by more than 15 seconds. Piastri led, and it was probably a genuine chance of a 1-2 before the contact with Carlos Sainz and the gearbox failure ended his race. McLaren's race strategy in Hungary was strong and fair. It gave both drivers a route to victory, and they could have created conflict, but I think the team managed that well. Lando Norris won the race. The operational weakness is probably broader in project timing. Norris said in Austria that McLaren were roughly 3 months behind and needed several upgrades, not just one, to get on top of the car. But it said it was going to be difficult under the cost cap resources. So hinting that potentially this Hungary result could be a little bit of a red herring, but something that they need to work on. What they need to keep doing is, well, basically keep the Hungary concept, keep treating Norris and Piastri fairly. Both have got an opportunity to go on and take a fight in this championship. Do not need to overreact to one victory by assuming every circuit will suit their car. A disappointing title defense, you've got to say, so far, but the encouraging development has to be this win just before, like I said, a goal before half time in the second half of the season. I'm giving them a 6 out of 10. Second place, Ferrari, and well, they're currently second with 307 points in the championship, 72 behind Mercedes. They've got 2 victories, 9 driver podiums, and the most evenly matched pairing on the grid. Their grade, I'm giving them a 9 out of 10. They started with excellent consistency in Australia and China, consecutive 3rd and 4th finishes. They were the ones look like they'll bring the fight to Mercedes, and that eventually came. Canada, though, bought a 2nd for Hamilton, a 4th for Charles Leclerc, and Barcelona was, well, the first great peak, wasn't there? It was a bold strategy move. Lewis Hamilton delivered his first victory in red. Emotional. It was brilliant. He beat Russell by 20 seconds. Silverstone was even stronger as a team. Charles Leclerc won. Lewis Hamilton finished in 3rd. Could have been a 2nd. And both Ferraris on the podium. Spa then confirmed the development curve. Charles Leclerc was 2nd. Lewis Hamilton in 4th. And the upgraded power unit introduced around Austria appeared to have reduced part of Ferrari's deficit. Spa kind of proved that a little bit. The regular aerodynamic components that have been have come to this car have just been proved that it's a stronger all-round car rather than one dependent on a sort of specific circuit type. Lewis Hamilton has been transformed from 2005. He's 2nd in the championship on 169 points. He's got 5 podiums to Charles Leclerc's 4th. He leads Charles Leclerc 6-5 in the qualifying. Lewis Hamilton leads race finishes 6-5. The balance is a major Constructors Championship asset. The pair of them have absolutely been brilliant. What the car still struggle with, and before the power unit stepped, they were vulnerable down the straights, and energy deployment was their big problem against Mercedes. Austria showed another limitation in extreme heat. Both cars suffered high tyre deg, and they went and were forced to go for a 3-stop, while that means Lewis Hamilton finished 5th and Charles Leclerc down to 8th. Probably particularly one of their worst weekends of the season. Monaco, and they've had missed opportunities. Monaco should have suited Ferrari, but Charles Leclerc crashed out. Lewis Hamilton 2nd, and there's potential for a win for him then. Hungary was probably one of their disappointing. It looked really promising for them. They led Friday practice. Lewis Hamilton qualified 2nd before penalties, but then in the race, it just went horribly wrong for them. Another race with Lewis Hamilton picking up a penalty. They've now twice surrendered track position with late pit stops, and it's cost Lewis Hamilton points. The calls weren't particularly absurd in terms of the pit stop calls, but when the car carries a small power unit deficiency and you can't give away small margins in terms of team strategy. Barcelona ended with Charles Leclerc retiring, and that prevented Ferrari converting Hamilton's huge win into a huge team sport, a point score for the team. What they need to improve operationally, I think it's greater discipline around the traffic management in qualifying. pit lane procedures and borderline strategy call. They've got some brilliantly calls like we've seen in Barcelona, and then they've just sort of fallen foul on some in Silverstone, pitting Lewis Hamilton under the safety car and giving up track position there, and in Hungary as well. I think they've got two genuinely fast drivers, and I think they need to manage both well, and just get both the maximum out of what the car has. What they need to keep doing is, well, just keep this momentum and upgrade momentum up. Keep building around Lewis Hamilton's improved confidence and Charles Leclerc's qualifying speed. Keep making the bold calls, because we've seen some upsides to that. Barcelona showed that. So they still need to be brave enough to make the bold strategy calls. And, well, I think it's been a brilliant first half of the season for them. They've developed well, won with both drivers, and they've stayed close enough to keep the pressure on the Mercedes. And the missing point, probably within the racing, has just been some of their avoidable executional errors for the team, and something that they need to get right. But a 9 out of 10 is a particularly strong result, in my opinion. First place, Mercedes, and they've won 8 of the 11 Grand Prix so far. They've led the first qualifying, or for the first 10 qualifying sessions of the season. They've got both championship leads, and they clearly are the team of the first half of the season, but they're not getting a 9 or they're not getting a 10. They're getting a 9, in fact, because, well, it's clearly the benchmark car. They've produced the best overall combination of chassis and power unit. It's not just the power unit that's getting them wins. This car is quick around a multiple of different circuits. It's got a strong baseline of balance. The energy deployment has been probably their strongest point, and not just the combustion engine part of the car. And it's got enough efficiency to be competitive across pretty much a vast different circuits. And every circuit that they've gone to, they performed really well. They got consecutive 1-2s in Australia and China. Antonelli then won in Japan, Miami, Canada and Monaco in succession. Russell stopped that by winning in Austria. Antonelli then came back with victories in Spa. Even in the 3 races Mercedes didn't win, it finished on the podium. The most intimidating detail is that the Mercedes achieved this without relying on a huge early upgrade program. The base car was simply right. The Antonelli's converted the platform magnificently. 6 wins, 6 poles, 219 points, and a 50-point championship lead going into the summer break. He leads George Russell 7-4 in both qualifying and the race head-to-heads. Mercedes should be further ahead, and I think that's their biggest weakness. After the 2 opening 1-2s, they've managed only 1 further double point before, or double podium before the break, and it was not another 1-2. And I think that's the remarkable point, considering that they've won 8 times this season. George Russell's been hit with reliability problems, operational problems. At Spa, he lost the deployment at the start. He fell into the Ferrari battle and then retired after contact in Hungary. A technical problem at the start dropped him to the back of the grid before he recovered to a 7th. He's had 2 DNFs to Kimi Antonelli's 1. Kimi Antonelli retired in Barcelona and finished only 15th in Silverstone after a penalty. And, well, he needed to recover from a grid penalty in Hungary as well. So there's been issues for Kimi as well. But at Monaco, Russell finished 12th while his teammate won. Mercedes' peak pace is excellent, but there's just too many weekends where it's just a 1-car result, and the the W17 is not perfect either. Austria showed a tendency to run the rear tyres hot, while Russell complained of sliding in Spa. Hungary ended the 10-race pole streak as well, and McLaren showed upgrades can beat Mercedes when the circuit and tyres demand line up. The reliability is the obvious priority for Mercedes. But they also need to ensure the championship doesn't become distorted by one driver, receiving a disproportionate share of the technical problems. That means they just need to get some forensic work done on the deployment failures, start system problems, cooling problems, and the gearbox issues. Strategically, Mercedes, I think they need to respond faster now that Ferrari and McLaren can win on merit. Earlier in the season, the pace margins allowed for them to recover from mistakes. Hungary showed that a penalty and a slow start and a badly timed problem can just remove you from the win. So issues that they need to resolve there. What they need to keep doing is just not lose the W17's wide operating window, and add performance as well. I think that's one thing that they've been nervous about, is with upgrades, they could reduce the performance window of this car, where it's generally been good. Kimi Antonelli's calm environment needs to be kept around him. They need to keep supporting George Russell to just build his confidence back. They need to keep the power unit exploitation advantage that they have, and that's what separated them from Mercedes and McLaren. That's been their big separator, really, hasn't it? They've both got the same hardware. But Mercedes have basically kept the most of it. Most importantly, they just need to keep banking points on the days where the car's not quickest. Kimi Antonelli's third place in Hungary was probably as good as a win at times, and they need to keep that up. And the verdict is a 9 out of 10 for this season. They've got the best cars, the most wins. They lead both championships. The missing points, or the point really, is just down to the reliability failures, and it's just been down to one car winning, and that's kept Ferrari within range, really, of where they are. So my mid-season report card is Mercedes with a 9, Ferrari with a 9, McLaren and Red Bull with a 6, Racing Bulls an outstanding 9, Alpine have given them a 7, Haas a 5, Audi a 7, Williams a 3, Aston Martin a 1, and Cadillac a 5. The most important thing is, well, that these grades are for the job that each team has done, not just where their championship position is. Mercedes have been the best. Red Bulls, or the Racing Bulls, have been the most efficient. Aston Martin have been the biggest failure, but their Hungary upgrade gives them a chance to right some of the wrongs of their story of the season so far. McLaren might not be too far behind to defend either championship, but they could be the team nobody wants to face after the break. Ferrari are close enough that one more Mercedes reliability crisis could change everything. Well, now it's your turn. Give me your rating for all 11 teams in the comments. Tell me which score you think is the most controversial. And if you enjoyed the deeper technical operation breakdown, subscribe and like. As always, I'll see you on the next one.